Sixth meeting of the HVAC IAQ Building Committee. 9:16. Stand for the pledge. Flag. Pledge of allegiance. It's me. Whose flag? Nice. To the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Justice for all. Okay. Respiratory thing going here. All right. We did not get the minutes, so we are going to skip over that, shelve that for the next meeting. So moving on to project updates.
Yes.
Osborne Hill.
Well, I'll start off and then turn it over to Tim. I just got a couple items. We do have the Pitts House CX, our commissioning. We'll be meeting with them next week to go over scope and get them under contract. That's based on setting up a meeting with the town forces. And security vestibule bids have been extended to August 6th. It looks like we have 2 bidders at least. Not sure about that third bidder, but that has been extended for a final time to the August 6th. And with that, I'll turn that over.
Based on an ask for an extension by one of the vendors?
Correct. It was based on RFI responses. There was questions regarding manufacturers of the doors, and I guess there's 2 manufacturers that could supply them, and it's basically the manufacturers are asking for the extension. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Yes, thanks, Mark. Mark, I know you asked me to put together a couple pictures. Let me just share my screen quick, give you guys a little update. Can you guys, sorry. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just wanted to give you some updates. So right now things are moving along as scheduled. These are just a few quick progress photos. So Fairfield Woods, you can see we have the new grid going up. These are some of the cassette VRFs that are going in the ceiling along with the new lights. This is just one of the classrooms on the first floor. This is also the corridor on the first floor. You can see again, here's our new trunk lines, grid, new lights, insulation where it has to be on the new trunk lines. So that's just a couple updates. Just wanted to show you kind of where we're moving as of the past week or so. Fairfield Woods, this was some of the primary stuff that we had to do. So again, we had, our trench with our conduits. This is the encasement that we had to do for UI. And then also just, the fresh asphalt patch that we did. We cleaned this up last weekend so that the school could have their concerts, and we were able to kind of get everything out of the way, and they were thrilled about that. So we got a lot of applause for helping out Fairfield Woods for their concert weekend.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to take the meeting to slow you down. That requirement for the conduit buried under the drivable areas, that's a UI spec? Or was that school driven or engineer driven?
No, that's a UI spec. Okay. It's in their handbook. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Amar was going to research that a little bit I guess it was 2 sessions ago.
Yeah.
That had been brought up. I don't know if there's any clarity on that more so. Amar,
If it's in their blue book, it's in the blue book. There's no change in that. That's for sure.
It's very common that under drivable areas, when you have a primary, that UI requires that it has to be encased in concrete for 2 reasons. One of them, obviously, for loading requirements. The other reason is because it's being for a primary high voltage. In the event somebody excavates, they want to make sure their system is protected before somebody rips up the primary. So that's really the 2 reasons for the concrete encasement. It's very, very common to sell for the primary.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just a few shots of North Stratfield. So you can see this is the new insulation going down on the roof. Here we have a couple shots of the classrooms and the corridors. So again, the new grid going up with some of the new ductwork. Here's a corridor shot. Grid started going in North Stratfield earlier this week. So this shot's a little, actually we started doing grid about Tuesday this week. So this shot just showing the new trunk line though that had to run down that phase 1 corridor. And then Osborne Hill, these are a couple pictures just showing again, we have new duct that has been put in. We have new grid and new lights. And then here's a shot of the corridor. Again, you can see new grid going in. We have the lights getting laid in. So we're pushing along. We have inspections coming up in the next week or so. So we're on schedule. We're pushing forward. And as of right now, I think we're in a good place.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I just got to take back the screen.
Mark, anything else from you on updates? Rodney, Joe, any questions on that?
No,
Yeah, just to get back to the, sorry, Joe. Just to get back to the concrete. Jeff, as you said a couple weeks ago,
We can't hear, Rod, we can't hear you, sorry.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Right. We got a request for an extra. Where are we with that? For the concrete?
Oh, Tim, do you have a price yet finalized for the concrete encasement?
Oh, from the ATP.
Yeah. Have you received-
No, Dowling is getting us that stuff hopefully early next week. They had to put it all together from the extra work.
Well, the question, and not only the price, but the question was raised why this wasn't part of the contract. And I believe that Gilbane was going to get with the engineer and hash that out. We haven't heard anything since.
Jesse's on the call here. Maybe Jesse, you could weigh in on that a little bit as to why UI is requiring concrete encasement. Maybe you could weigh in on that, please.
Well,
we all know.
it's not so much
Wait, hold
that
on a second.
UI is requiring the encasement. It's part of their spec, their common spec.
Yeah.
So
How do we miss it?
I'm just curious why this was not picked up.
Okay, so let me weigh in on this topic. So the way the structure is being a guaranteed maximum price, not lump sum bidding, we buy what's on the contract documents, details, and specifications. And obviously, if it's shown on the documents, we own it. Whether we buy it from the sub or not, we own it, and that's why we have a CM contingency in the event it's missed by us. This specific topic, with this specific scope item, was not on the drawings. It was not on the specification. Regardless, there's a UI reference that to coordinate with UI. It's really that was more on the designer side of things to make sure that their details and requirements are fully detailed on our drawings, because we can only hold the subcontractors to what's shown on the drawings in the specification.
And I appreciate that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very large extra.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we're going to have further discussions on this, Jeff.
Sure. I mean, Jesse,
Rodney, how did it get missed in the bidding process, and how
Right.
we're going to pay for it?
Oh, I guess I do need to weigh in. We brought this to Gilbane's attention in the bidding process, and they decided not to include it.
It sounds like they should be paying for it based on that.
I'll dig into that RFI. My bad on that one. Allow me till next Friday. I'll come back to you full circle with a complete explanation. Okay.
Appreciate it.
No problem. And in the event, just so you're aware, in the event that something that we misbought, and it does happen, there's 3 projects, every one of them has its own situations. That's why we have a CM contingency, just so in the event that we didn't buy it or we told the subs not to carry it, that we missed it, then we'll switch that from an out of scope change to what we call an in scope change. That comes out of our contingency, the CM contingency out of the GMP. So that's really the other avenue for this. But let me dig into it a little bit more. Tim, you and I need to look into this one after this meeting and
Yeah.
kind of go backwards in the history of it, and we'll reach out to Jesse, make sure that he's on the same page as us, and we'll report back to you next Friday or the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else in phase 1? Rodney, Joe, good? Okay, Mark, all set?
All set with phase 1.
All right, thank you. Moving on to project updates, phases 2 through 5.
We do have the estimate in the project budget for the next phases. They are the project budget. The overall project budget is not completed. There are a couple questions. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Parent from Gilbane, and then I'll come in with my piece after that. Mike, do you want me to share, or do you want to share the estimate?
Mike, where is he? Was on a minute ago.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was trying to share my screen and the mute button was on. Mark, I can share the summary sheet. I don't know. I know there's
Okay.
several pages of it, but I think the summary will tell the tale, and it's very similar to obviously phase 1. So let me just see. I'm not too familiar with
Yep.
WebEx here, but I will do my best to share.
It's next to the stop video button.
Yep.
There we go. Window.
So while
All right. I think I got it
Yep.
here.
we see it, except you might have to zoom in and out in order to.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
My best. I know there's a lot of numbers. Try to keep it all on one screen, but if anybody needs me to zoom in, feel free to ask. So we did a schematic design estimate for Tomlinson, Fairfield Ward, Ludlow, Walter Fitzgerald campus. So as you'll see here in these columns, we have each school broken out with their own pricing, and then a total for phase 2 through phase 5, which is the furthest right column here. It's organized by spec discipline, which is very, very similar to how we buy out the job via bid package. So, that schematic design, there aren't a lot of takeoffs per se. So we're really looking at historical data in the basic floor plans that BL companies put together and the narratives that they put together. So, all of the schools, I'll start with Tomlinson, for example, select areas of the building requiring some new rooftop units specifically in the, pardon?
It was just feedback on somebody's speaker. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Tomlinson Middle School, as you can see, that and Walter Fitzgerald, much smaller scopes. Tomlinson in particular, we're replacing a couple of new rooftop units over in the gymnasium areas. The electrical service is existing. We don't need to bring a new one in there. So the scope here is really limited to, those select areas here. That's why you see the 2.7 million in trade cost and the 4.7 million in total CM construction cost. For Fairfield Ward and Ludlow High Schools, again, these are the bulk of the just under $102 million pricing. Substantial area of the schools are getting renovated with a new variable refrigerant flow system and fresh air. And then finally, Walter Fitzgerald, again, much smaller scope there. It's just under $6 million. We are bringing in a new electrical service, but again, there's parts of the school that have air conditioning, and then there's that open media center type area in the back end of the building that needs new air conditioning. So Again, we looked at it. We used a lot of comps we've done a couple other HVAC upgrades projects as well on top of phase one. So, at this stage, using our historical data there, we're pretty comfortable where we are with these numbers. Again, at schematic design, we're carrying 10% design contingency. That will obviously get reduced as we get to the DD and CD phases. We're carrying escalation based on when we are anticipating these projects to begin. So each one of them have their own 4% per year at a construction midpoint, but that's how the math works there. The state education fee, again, it's a very minor amount of money, but we have that included. All of our site services, field operations, or field office support and general conditions money, our pre-construction services, all the indirects, bonding, fee, contingency, and insurance. So that's really a high level overview. I don't know if we want to get into the details of each one, but that's where we stand at this point. So just under $102 million, $266 square foot of work area.
For construction, that is only, obviously, there's the soft cost, which Mark will cover. And just to expand a little bit on the escalation piece, which is a significant amount of dollars. If you look all the way to the right, it's about a little over $10 million. What that does is, depending which project is being delivered when, is how the escalation, as you're all familiar with it. And obviously, as we move more closer in time, and that takes it to the midpoint in construction for each project. That's how we calculate escalation typically. So, for example, it just so happened that Ludlow happened to have a significant amount of escalation, $7.5 million. So if the town elects to move Ludlow sooner as one of the earlier projects to move it forward instead of Tomlinson, obviously that escalation number is going to be reduced because now that project is moving earlier in time. So it's not being delivered that late. The way we actually took a shot as delivery of implementation, that is for these projects, we said, all right, I think we could do. Tomlinson happened to have just the HVAC at the gymnasium and area, which is really more of a lead time issue. There's no really much other work to do. It's not like the way we're doing the phase one work, which is have to rip out the ceilings, abatement, demo. The scope is slightly different. So we said, all right, we can couple this one with, say, Ward. We can bid them both at the same time. However, we can start with Ward, do the actual demo, removal of ceiling, install lighting, install ductwork, all that work, and then the following summer we'll start with Tomlinson. They'll be running concurrently, and then we'll finish those two, and then we'll activate Ludlow. So that's how kind of the schedule, how we laid it out. There's multiple combinations you can do, and it depends. If you move the larger schools earlier, yes, you'll save on escalation because you're not delivering them that much later in time.
Yep.
Other items.
So just to go back on that, so the escalations, for example, the Tomlinson, the 186, that's predicated on Tomlinson being the next up to bat.
Yes, correct.
So this
Well,
go ahead.
Mike, if I could share.
Yeah, I'll stop. Hold on one second. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
So what I ended up doing was Gilbane put together their construction periods and all for the four phases, and taking that into account, I added it into the total program schedule here. Basically, they have, and this is part of the issue, but they have Tomlinson and Ward going at the same time. Basically, starting up next summer, next May. We have a 3 to 4 month bidding period, and the question I have is the design. And I spoke with Jesse on how long is it going to take BL to get from the DD set from the time the town tells them to go to get the bid set. But I ended up taking Gilbane's construction schedule and putting it in here. And as it goes through, you know, Tomlinson ends basically September 1 of 26. Ward
Yep.
continues through till the end of July of 27.
Yep.
And in that summer, we are starting up Ludlow. And as Ludlow is running
But Ludlow have
and
to be the
running
longest.
and
It's the most
running and
complicated.
all the way out, we don't start with Walter Fitzgerald till basically the summer of 29.
Yep.
Bidding in the spring.
Yep.
And basically, Walter Fitzgerald will be ready for September 1 of 30. And Ludlow runs all the way out to January 1 of 2031.
Yeah, and the reason, just kind of give people the reason why these lengthy durations, despite the fact that, for example, Ludlow happened to be close to like, I think $45-50 million, don't quote me. It's just because there's no swing space and we're doing a lot of the work, either second, just like we're delivering phase one, basically. So you're chopping it up into smaller phases because you can just handle so much. And obviously we capitalize on the summer, especially in the multi-purpose area, like the gymnasium, the cafeterias, or whatever the scope is for those like the admin. So our work timeline is very compressed and it's very choppy. So we can only attack so much. So that's kind of why it's called dragging out for so long. So then it's a very large school, obviously. It's over 300,000 square feet. Just to put it in comparison, it's almost twice the size, not quite, as Woods. That's Ludlow and Ward. They're very large schools. Wood happened to be actually very nice because it's a one story. So it's a little bit less complex. Ludlow High School is a very complicated piece. It's multi-story. It's been renovated multiple times. It's got complexities. And again, we'll look at it again when we run into the DDs. But maybe I'll turn it over to Mike to kind of, this is what we call the schematic design level. Again, the information is somewhat limited and we'll go through the same vetting process. So Mike, maybe you can give the group an overview of what the DD's expectations are.
Sure. Yeah, and I think we're getting pretty familiar with the process with BL now. So, if everybody got the estimate, I'll reshare it, but give me 1 sec.
Just be set.
Sharing video versus screen here. Hold on. Right. So again, like Amar mentioned, these schools are massive, and as of right now, we have a 27-page document, and a lot of the numbers are based on square foot costs and where we think they should be. As we get the DD documents in the next few weeks, we'll get a full specification section, or at least a much more info in that, and we'll have floor plans and drawings based on discipline. We'll have mechanical drawings, electrical drawings, architectural drawings. So as we get more information, this document here is going to grow pretty substantially just with all of our quantity surveys and takeoffs. So hopefully we'll be able to refine the scope now. And that'll be critical to really drive this number and see where we're coming in at. But again, that'll hopefully the goal is to keep it where it is, and that design contingency and escalation will drop as we get closer to the actual bid documents. So we're ready to go with Jesse's team, and we'll reach out and get pricing from all the vendors, hopefully for the electrical gear and mechanical equipment, which is 70% of the project. And then we'll roll into CDs next.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, right now, the schematic design, where a lot of the costs, as Mike mentioned, is all square foot cost. Once we get the DDs, we'll do actual physical takeoff. We'll turn into linear footage and also square foot cost, but there'll be a lot more details to it. So we'll have the units more defined. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, you got quoted on the mechanical equipment, though,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
For a level of comfort to the committee, that wasn't a square foot cost. That was quoted by the representative.
That's right. Okay. So that's the construction cost. I don't know if Mark, you want to take over from there?
Yep.
Any questions
Yep.
before we depart, or any questions from Mike as far as the construction cost estimate? Kind of this represents what we call the GMP, if you will, which captures the trade costs that you see there, and then there's obviously the below the line cost, which makes up the GMP or the construction cost itself. Happy to answer any questions the committee has. If you need, obviously, if any questions come up later on in future meetings, let us know. Happy to have Mike join in and clarify any questions you have. Mark, you shared a copy of this estimate, correct, with the group?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, any questions you have, let us know in the future. Happy to jump on a call and clarify anything.
Jeff,
Yeah,
when do
just
we
one more
go-
thing, Mark, about we used previous quotes for the equipment at schematic design that the team didn't
Okay.
have quite enough information, but we have what we think is a conservative number. I look at the mechanical equipment, for example, on a cost per CFM basis, airflow, and then the VRF is on a cost per ton. So, we have plugs in there for that, but they will absolutely be engaged at the DD level if there's schedules and more information. I do a lot of work with Train, for example, and Eaton for the electrical gear. So they'll be on board.
Jeff, when do we need to go in front of the boards with this?
Yeah, I don't know, Rodney. I have to dig into that a little bit. It's not clear to me what their, I know the BOE's been chafing at the bit, right, to get some of this information. So I'll have to circle back with Mr. Lee and see where he,
Yeah, I think I'm just guessing, but I think the boards may want to know that they're going to be faced with $100 million hit.
Yeah. I did give the selectman's office a little heads up. I happened to be there yesterday, but yes, I agree, Rodney. Mark, I'm going to have to connect with you to get, or maybe my ask would be to, you went through your little Gantt chart pretty fast. Maybe you could summarize that into a one pager. Maybe just, I don't need big bars, just maybe give us projected start and completion dates.
Well, yeah, instead of doing weekly, maybe we compress it to monthly and just go from there.
That would be wonderful. If you can fit it into one page,
yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah, just something that gets helps clarify that those durations.
Yep.
And
Mike, if I could share.
Sorry, Michael, are these already Eaton campuses? Is that why you mentioned Eaton, or?
To be honest with you, Joe, they're my go-to for the gear. I know they priced up the phase 1, so I'm not quite sure if that's who ended up winning the phase 1 scope. Tim or Mar might know, but I know they helped me price it at phase 1.
We ended up, I believe, with Siemens, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Siemens.
Tim? We have Siemens
Okay.
for switch gear or gear equipment.
Okay, well then I'll touch base when we get the DD documents too.
Yep.
I'm happy to get pricing from them as well, and I'll have Tim help me get a contact there. Eaton, I just have one go-to, and these
Gotcha.
electrical gear companies are always tough to find the right person to help. So I'll get that info, and hopefully they'll be able to help us as well. More numbers, the better.
Yep. And as we mentioned, obviously the construction, Mark presented the construction duration is over a span of about 6 years. Kind of those projects that we didn't put them all on top of each other to be delivered all at the same time. So we phased them. So that way, hopefully the finances can follow in the same direction.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that'll go to the capital summit this summer or this fall, and it's based on cash flow and how they want to lay these out.
Yep.
Just to Rodney's point, I did talked to, or this is probably month-old information. I know Jason was looking for the information for the BO meeting at the end of August. What I had told him was he needed Tomlinson is I guess the big one, the next one up. So that's the one that he's looking for.
Yeah.
Right off the bat at the end of August.
And what was I came on after this sort of batting order had been set. What was the rationale or thought process around this? I mean, I see Tomlinson, Ward, Ludlow, Fitzgerald is sort of the in that sequence, which I don't know if it maps to what we originally talked about.
yeah.
Ward being at the end. So it seems to have been gotten shuffled a little bit. I don't know the original reasoning or the revised reasoning. So is there anything there to discuss?
The rationale for 2 through 5 was going back to the waterfall. I guess the summit from last fall. And it's just a matter of how the cash flow worked with the projects. I suspect they're going to get this and the schedule is going to be rearranged again.
Right.
So,
And that's what I said earlier. We could shuffle the start of Tomlinson, because that's equipment swap. It was fairly straightforward. The scope. So we took on Ward, obviously being 36 million versus 54 million. Ludlow in construction, there's a significant delta between these two. So kind of we wanted to attack a project that's a Tomlinson, more like equipment swap, has a lead time. So you bid it and you're sitting. You're not doing really anything, waiting for the equipment to arrive probably 8 months or so later. In the meantime, since we have the projects, we decided, okay, let's put the Ward with Tomlinson, bidding it at the same time. We could start at the Ward while we're waiting for the equipment at Tomlinson to arrive that in about 8 months or so. But again, to Mark's point, we could shuffle this any order. Walter Fitzgerald was always led us to believe that was kind of least priority project. So we kind of deferred that one to the very end. But like I said, we can arrange this any way you want to. It's, the one thing is you don't want to do Tomlinson on its own, probably not advisable, because you release it and you're just sitting until the equipment physically shows up, and then you do the work. So you're kind of incurring some level of cost. We said, all right, instead of sitting doing nothing, let's just couple it with a project that has some level of renovations or work that we can actually get going on, and to be able to knock two of them at the same time. But again, everything is financially driven by the town, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Ward and Ludlow also have really long tails, so it's
right.
To start it, but,
it is a very long, painful process, that one.
Just curious, what was slated in the waterfall for these schools?
Mark,
Do we
do
know?
you know the answer to that?
I do know the answer. Let's see. How quickly can I get to it is the big question.
My guess, I think
No.
around 60 million, I think.
No.
I guess. But let Mark.
Yes.
But just one point so we're not lost in the comparison of the numbers. This is construction cost only, what you're looking at the screen. Does not include
Correct.
design, owner
Yeah, no, no.
contingency, and other soft costs. Just want to make sure it's not apples to apples. That's why.
Which just makes it worse if it's 60 million.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. I just want to make sure when you're comparing numbers, it's.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Now, when do we have Tomlinson and Ward starting?
Right now, we're looking, obviously, that's all driven by design, but we're looking to start bidding it as soon as the spring of 25, and obviously start the work in the summer of 25, and Tomlinson HVAC units will be fitted out sometime in summer of 26. So kicking it off summer of 25, give or take, late spring, summer of 25.
So
those
we're gonna need to go in front of the boards sooner than later, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you have a step Jesse and his team obviously had to get released on CDs to develop the bid documents, because right now the effort is only through DD level. So there's that. So there's a sit down period, if you will, once we develop the DD budget in September. Then kind of restart authorizing Jesse on whatever schools you guys elect to go with. And that's be the bid document phase. And then we go out to bid with the goal of making awards sometime late spring, early summer next year.
Rodney, to your point, the waterfall has about 59 million in it for the 4 projects.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so I just saw a quick glimpse at your summary. And we're gonna be asking for 60 million more, give or take.
Correct.
Mm.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna be sick that day, Jeff.
Well, Ronnie, I know you've been looking forward to presenting to the board, so.
Well, I mean, that's why we're bringing these designs to DD, is so we get a number that is that when we go forward to bid it, it's going to be the correct number versus what we
No,
did. Well,
I appreciate that, but you're going in front of a board and asking for $60 million more than the waterfall. That's whether the numbers are exact or not. That's it's tough sell.
Yep. Mark, I like your confidence in us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
one way to look at it, so it's not people don't fall off their chairs, maybe.
Too late,
Look
Mark,
at it.
too late.
Well, I tell you what, they fell
I
off
know,
their chair. They fell off their chairs for what we asked for last year.
Yes.
exactly.
This they just
And-
may melt in place.
Yeah. I mean, the other way, maybe you could look at it. You could say, okay, if you look at Tomlinson, original waterfall, Tomlinson now, and maybe if you decide to go with Ward, original versus Ward now, what is that delta? But then you got to look at it at the time. You might have to defer maybe Ludlow and Walter Fitzgerald even further back. Maybe you could look at it that way instead of just saying, okay, with the current delivery, because there's a timeline factor to these. I don't know what the original waterfall had for timeline factor as to what their allocation was going to be like. Were they all going to be allocated at the same time? Were they going to be allocated over a certain duration? I don't know. So there's the time factor. We want to make sure that's.
Well, Tomlinson and Walter Fitzgerald were going next year.
Oh,
Ludlow was going in 26 and Ward was going in 28.
okay. So Ward was the last one somehow. Walter Fitzgerald wants to move up because of the dollar amount potentially, or is it because?
This was all last year, kind of evening out the cash flow. So
I guess once we produce the numbers, there'll be a conversation to look at this, and I don't know which body would be the one that would say, okay, let's study it this way, study it that. Like I said, depending which ones you move up, if you push out Ward even further out, now your escalation has increased more.
Mhm.
So the math works against you if you move the larger ones back. So that's something to consider. I'm not saying, I'm just giving you the information.
Sure.
Nothing's getting cheaper, that's for sure.
From an
No,
escalation
no,
perspective
no.
and an inflationary perspective, the bigger the project, the more the savings would be doing it sooner than later.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
So
And it
that
could
can
be
be your
good.
pitch to the board, Jeff.
I mean, it could be millions, but you're not going to
Yes.
save 30 million. You're going to save a couple of million, but you're not going to save 10 million. Just
Is there a rule of thumb? I mean, do we have an estimate or idea, or anybody want to throw out a gut of what the tightening from a SD to DD perspective? Is it plus or minus 1%, 10%, 50%? What do you guys typically find?
so on the mic, maybe jump in at any time. We do at schematic design level with the information being not, we carry design contingency. And it depends on what the numbers and the details show at the DD levels. They do tighten up, but sometimes off. I don't want to jinx it. Sometimes actually grows even more. Depends what, because
No,
you
I
may.
understand, it's a plus or minus variance, I understand that, it's a cone of uncertainty,
I don't
whatever.
know, Mike,
phrase you
what
wanna
have
use,
you
but-
seen in the past within a variance of about 1 to 2%, basically, one way or the other?
Well, I think one thing to consider here is like when we're doing an SD estimate for a completely new school, right? You have 30 or so disciplines that you're working with. There's more risk there on stuff to change.
Mhm.
Hopefully, for here, I mean, in my opinion, your biggest risk is what, basically HVAC and electrical. Of course, there's some other existing conditions. There's unidentified abatement. Something like that, but it's HVAC and electrical, and the harder it is, once we do some more exploratory work and Jesse's team tries to figure out how to sort of piecemeal airflow and air conditioning into the building, that's really our risk. But again, we have phase one as a good example and benchmark for us, and we've done a couple more. So
Right.
I personally think if anything that can potentially grow, it would be in electrical and mechanical, and the $6.5 million of design contingency hopefully
Yes.
covers that. So it's hard to put a percentage on it, Jeff, but I would say that we would have to have a substantial change, to really affect on the other way, if you will. So,
The other,
when we get quotes, that'll really help me understand. Quotes and layouts will really help me understand, where we're at. Square foot numbers work for the most part, but depending on how we have to route the electrical feeders, where trains coming in at for the new equipment, if they're the base of design, stuff like that. So, I'm optimistic that we have enough money here, but we just, as long as we don't add brand new roofs to the school, put in solar panels, have to upgrade existing electrical equipment in the school on top of what we need for the mechanical, stuff like that. So,
Well, roofs and solar panels will be coming in under a different project.
yeah,
So
right.
just citing examples.
You're right.
Jeff, the other pieces that makes this one unfortunately pricey is the delivery. Don't lose sight of the delivery method, is that we're doing stuff on second shift and we're doing it choppy.
Yes.
So there's a significant premium. That's why phase one came in at a premium, because of those conditions, is that the subs are taking on all the risk on the productivity. So when you're doing 2 classrooms at a time in demo versus you going in there with a crew and demoing an entire wing, there's a huge savings or premiums that go along with that. So that's really the nature of the delivery of the project. Plus, not to mention, we talk escalation, all the bidders are going to assume all the escalation in their bid. If this a project that's 3-4 years long, that's not only the number of bidders shrinks because of nobody wants to put themselves out for 3-4 years out, assume all the pricing escalation because they have no recourse to come back to us and say, hey, I just got a price increase on the copper, or a price increase on the units, or refrigerant now switched from design to design. So there's all these that they assume. So this is, unfortunately, these are fairly unique projects, and that's why they come in, unfortunately, a little bit on the pricier side.
All right,
All good questions. And like I said, happy to jump in on another. If you have more questions, just give us a heads up. I can have Mike join us at the next meeting. If you have any questions, happy to answer anything or go through any detail that you find within our estimate.
all right. Mark, were we circling to some soft costs or something you wanted to cover, or is that what this slide is showing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what this slide is showing. Basically, what we ended up doing was we took Gilbane's number and plugged it in, and then we ran through, like we did on phase one, we went through, FF&E costs. This is kind of what we're seeing. We have the architects, we have all the fees in here. Colliers still have to provide their number, but these are everything we're seeing from some of the costs that we have in phase one. the physical plant expenses, I bumped this up from phase one for for at least Ward and Ludlow because of PV panels. Fitzgerald and Tomlinson don't have PV panels, so I kept it kind of the numbers where we're at, and then with contingencies to get the final number. And this 4382 is summed up here, basically what we did in phase one. So when the Collier's number is finalized, I'll plug this in, but it's basically run in the same format that we did in phase one.
Okay.
So I will finalize this. I'll get the schedule together because those are dependent upon, the costs are dependent on the schedule. So, you know, depending on, as Amar said, as we move the projects around, escalation varies and will vary. So
Did anyone do any timeline estimating, meaning Ward 40 million, when, assuming we started that in, just for argument's sake, we started that in the spring of 2025, what fiscal year would those numbers be hitting? I'm not asking the question, I'm just wondering if anybody's done that analysis yet. And I'm sensing no, because no one's jumping in on that, so.
well, as far as cash flow for the project, as far
Yeah, I mean, from a waterfall perspective, we're setting this up. It's 113 million over X number of years, but it's not a peanut butter spread across the years. It's going to be jagged based on acquisition of equipment or different phases of the contract. So we're going to have to get a little more granular, I think, in depending on for each of these swim lanes when we would be incurring. No, I don't know if we have to get at least percentage wise to see what those jagged steps look like versus again, I'm sure it's not a smooth month over month expense. So
would it be a bell curve similar to Amar? Would it be a bell curve similar to phase one?
Yes, the only thing is
heavy in the summer.
Yeah, well, actually, no, they'll be, it'll be heavier in the summer because you put work in place, but then when the equipment arrives to Jeff's point, yes, there'll be stored material that they're gonna, depending on the equipment gets rigged in. But you will, I mean, effectively, for the purposes of the waterfall, if you decide to go with Tomlinson and let's say Ludlow and Ward, we've developed cash flow specific for those particular schools and how they're going to get implemented. We just have to freeze that timeline. You got to tell us which timeline we're actually following. So we'll be able to distribute the dollars as best as we can. But like I said, it is a bell curve, and we'll be peaking at summer times and maybe a little bit earlier fall. Then we'll drop, and then when the equipment invoicing comes in for whether it's the switchgear end or the equipment, you'll see that spike there.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'm going to be circling back on that to get more detail around that.
Yeah,
we'll have to break that down. If you guys have a month over month, if you built out when you're doing your estimates a month over month sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we could share if you like. Happy to share the phase one cash flow. We provide that on a monthly basis, so you kind of get to see what that looks like for phase one. Obviously, it's a smaller dollar amount, but we do that.
Well, right, but I'm more concerned about percentages, like percentage spends more than the actual dollars. Obviously, that'll vary.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure in the capital summit they'll ask for the cash flow. So, but that's also we'll need information from the capital summit on what the batting order is actually.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so just one last question I have. As far as escalation numbers go, if we were just to make sure I understand the way it's done, the escalation number was predicated on Tomlinson going first. So if Tomlinson was to be pushed to the tail to the last the escalation number for Tomlinson would therefore be increased,
Yes,
and Ludlow, if you will, or whatever was pulled forward would be decreased.
correct. Absolutely
This
correct.
is predicated on this sequence of work.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we looked at Ludlow. That one request was made, so can we move Ludlow instead of Ward? Push Ward back, move Ludlow up, and Ludlow being a $55 million versus $36 million, the escalation actually was reduced. Ludlow came in lighter, I think by like, I want to say like $1 million because it moved up in the order.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I remember looking at that, Amaro. It was like a $1.6 million
Right.
difference to bring do Ludlow, Tomlinson, Ward, Fitzgerald. I think that was the
Right.
study we were looking at. So
All right. Okay. Lot to take in. Lot to take in. Okay. Rodney, Joe, any other questions from you guys?
No,
That's a lot of information to digest.
no,
but happy to-
not at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you, gentlemen, for the efforts. I appreciate it.
No problem.
thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Omar, just work on that. I just need that 20% discount coupon.
Yeah, actually, I am. It's funny that you mentioned that because I'm looking at because we're delivering phase one. We're there until August of 25. So I'm trying to take advantage of if we bid out those two schools, whatever two schools you elect to do, because at least that we have continuity and the team is there, so we can kind of take advantage of that to demobilizing and remobilizing, and it's just there's some economy there.
Okay. All right. Moving on to approvals, section 5, ATPs.
Yep.
I had them somewhere.
I got the cover up. We'll start at Woods. The first one for Woods is ATP 16. This is for the above grade junction box by UI. I guess originally we had a concrete vault, and the splices would be done in that vault. UI is requesting that they put a tap box in, basically an above ground that sits above ground, and the splices are made in here. Jesse, did I miss anything? This is the UI request, and the cost on this is estimated at $4,907.
No, UI changed how they wanted this shown and done between the design phase and when they saw it out in the field. So that's really what this is.
Okay. Okay. I should ask, Rodney and Joe, did you guys get a chance to look through all the ATPs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll make a motion to approve ATP number 16 for Fairfield Woods, the above grade junction box, UI transformer in the amount of $4,907. Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? UI seems to be a bit of a wild card in our budget and process. Is there anything that we can do in the future to mitigate some of this stuff? Or is it just the nature? I know we talked about depends which person shows up at the job site.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, everything that happens here, we're using on the schools going forward. to cover what we think they're gonna want, but of course they can still change it, you know, like the moving of the utility pole at Fairfield Woods. I mean, you can't guess that stuff ahead of time or anticipate that they're gonna want to do that.
So Jesse, since you brought that up, I had a question about that. Is there something we missed or they just want to move the utility pole because they want to move it and they're making us pay for it?
They're not making us pay for the utility pole. They're doing the pole, but we already had conduits in the ground and trenching done and stuff like that. So we were connecting up to the utility pole that was there. They came out and said, oh, we're gonna move it over here. So a portion of that work had to be redone because of that. And we've, you know, we had them out at these sites multiple times during the design phase.
Right.
We talked them through what we were proposing. We got their blessing on how to do it. And it's, you know, then they come back out during construction and say, oh, we want to change things around a little bit.
Yeah, I hear it a lot. It's just, you know,
It's frustrating for
project.
sure.
It's constant. Yeah.
It's frustrating for
It's
us.
frustrating and it's expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure what other recourse we have on it, but it does seem to be a bit of a.
Question, I guess, for Tim and Jesse, is the UI thing now behind us at this junction for all three schools as far as this is it? Or are we?
Well, right now we have a meeting going on in the field with Mark and Dale with UI for the transformer locations at Osborne or Stratfield. Basically because they're located currently between the trees and we had to get the tree warden involved because UI wants to remove the trees. So they're causing ruffling there, which we're trying to mediate today. I don't have an update yet because the meeting just started about 10 minutes ago. So Mark and Dale will give me an update. Of course, you know, the tree warden is trying to protect the trees and, you know, the school also wants to protect the trees. So we're trying to see if we can shift the transformer maybe outside of the tree line.
Okay.
You know, so right now, to answer your question, we're almost behind with UI, but we have an active meeting right now, and we'll hopefully have this behind us by, you know, Monday.
Were the trees called to be removed in our documents?
No, they're to remain.
Okay, so that's good. Get them out of the tree. So hopefully that will be a no cost change,
Yeah.
as long as they don't do anything silly. But
Well, that's exactly it. We get this mapped out
Okay.
now, and then we do our trenching, hopefully as soon as we get the confirmed layout from
Yeah.
UI, and we finish up the work there at those two schools in the next couple weeks.
Okay, and that's pretty much it with UI on all three, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Rodney, Joe, any other discussion on ATP 16?
No.
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Thank you. ATP
Next one up is ATP 17. This is in response to RFI 24 for the Dean Suite site C duct versus ceiling. Jesse, do you want to take us through this one? This is based on the RFI response.
Yeah, that I actually don't know the exact details of this one. I think I'm not really sure what drove this.
I
mean,
can
it's
walk through it
pretty
if you need a
minor.
little help from the RFI.
Please.
Essentially, there's ductwork into this space, but there wasn't a call to remove the ceiling. So it was going to be, you know, potentially a patch job there with new ceiling and old ceiling to get the ductwork in. So we had just asked the RFI to, you know, understand if we should replace the entire ceiling so that it looks proper and everything aligns correctly. And the answer came back to remove and replace the ceiling as needed to match the existing heights. So this just includes the cost to do that work, which is removal and then replace with new. It's a small office, as you can see. It's not a very large area, but we have to get, you know, a few of the trades in there, fire protection, electrical, to just, you know, rehang the lights, pop the new heads into the tiles, et cetera. So. And it wasn't in as you can see on this drawing, there was no removal of the ceiling in that space.
Well, there should have been in this space here. But that's 70% of the psych room and probably 2/3 of the dean suite.
Yeah, I think there's a couple locations like this, very minimal, where it's small areas that may have been miscommunicated during design.
Okay. So Mark, go back to your
And
summary.
this is estimated
This is an estimated out of, and then coming out of where?
contingency. Owner's contingency.
Okay. So I'll make a motion. Back somewhere. To approve ATP 17, RFI number 24 B121 Dean Suite ductwork ceiling in the amount of $8,112 estimated. Can I get a second? Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next one is ATP 19 for RFI 20, Fairfield Woods, classroom B112, existing steel and conflict. This is the next classroom over from this space. Basically, this is where we were before. This is ductwork coming across, and this is a response to RFI 20. Just if you want to get into the details.
I think the issue here was just some very unusual structural conditions in the ceiling here that normally you wouldn't see in a building like this. So I think that was the conflict there. Like that concrete beam is pretty unusual.
And you can. Here's the concrete beam next to the steel beam.
So in short, we had to change the running of the ductwork to go around these unforeseen beams. So,
Yes.
elevator speech version of what we're talking about.
Yep. And this should be, I didn't see the cost when I went by this. This should be pretty minor in cost, I believe. Should be.
$3,817.
Yeah, that seems a little high, but that's fine. These aren't the
It's an
actual,
estimate.
yes, exactly. These aren't the actual costs. These are estimates before the costs come in.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve ATP 19 RFI number 20 classroom B112 existing steel and conflict in the estimated amount of $3,817 for Fairfield Woods. Second.
I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
Gentlemen, any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Next one up is ATP 20 for I-19, corridor 231, existing storm in conflict. This is up on the second floor, and there is a storm drain there's two storm drains, I believe, that run across the perpendicular to the length of the corridor, and the response was to drop the ceiling in basically this area right here to 8'6" or 8 foot, yeah, to avoid the storm drain.
Yeah, that was an existing condition and it just kind of blocked the entire corridor there.
Okay. So making a motion to approve ATP number 20, RFI 19 for corridor 231, existing storm and conflict. Estimated amount of $5,563.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on.
And this ATP 21 is
This is a utility pole, so actually it's a bit of a misnomer.
yeah, relocation site utility. It is estimated. Basically, the route of the conduit was done to the existing utility pole. After that was done, and before it was encased in concrete, the UI told them that it was going to move to this island here. Ignore the blue. That's where I thought they were moving it, and Bill Bain corrected me. It's going into this island. So it's new conduits to this island here.
Is
The
that
utility pole is not part of this charge. It is the UI charge. That's a UI cost. The cost is the routing of the conduits.
okay? So make a motion to accept ATP number 21, relocation of site utility poles in the estimated amount of $20,720 for Fairfield Woods. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, what are we getting for $20,720? And it looks like the run is maybe 20 feet, 30 feet?
So yeah, Rodney, it's an estimated cost, and it's essentially we had to saw cut the parking lot again. We had to do excavation. It's about 30 to 40. It's about 40 to 50 feet actually, because when we had it open, there was about 2 plates that had to cover it, and those plates are about 20, 25 feet apiece. So it's about 40 feet or so of length. They had to saw cut. They had to excavate again. We had to lay conduit in. We had to do the concrete again. And then backfill, obviously, inspect and get asphalt. So it was that whole process all over again in that direction.
What's the depth of the excavation?
It was like 5 feet or so, because there's a couple areas where they would go a little deeper just based on just the existing condition of the trench.
Seems a little excessive.
Rodney, when we get the quote from Dowling, we'll vet through it. This is more to kind of acknowledge there's going to be cost exposure and we need to get going on it. We could hold off, but probably not advisable. But when we get the quote, we'll vet through it in much greater detail. Mark will look at it. Jesse will look at it. And we'll make sure we're taking measurements ourselves and we'll validate every component of it, okay, before it gets finalized.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Rodney, Joe, guys good?
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you. Moving on to North Stratfield.
ATP 13, RFI 43, in classroom 3 and 4, there's no T-stat in each of the classrooms for the fin tube radiation. So the local, basically not local controls, but local sensors to take care of the fin tube radiation. I'll pull that up.
That's one that,
Estimate.
Reading these numbers.
say, that's one that was admittedly missing on our documents, unfortunately.
Expensive thermostats. All right, I'll make a motion to approve ATP number 13, RFI number 43, North Strathfield classrooms 3 and 4 missing T-stats in the estimated amount of $3,817. Have a second
I'll second.
Okay.
discussion?
Not for me.
Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And lastly, ATP 14 for North Strathfield. I guess this will explain it. There's one in the ATP also. Previously, we did the abatement in the first corridor here. This is to do the abatement in, I reluctantly say this, phase 2 corridor. Part of the re-roofing that is being done this summer is being done on this phase 2 corridor, so they can get the roof set and then they can land the units when they arrive instead of waiting for the roofing. In the first phase, they discovered the existing condition that the electrical wires are run in the flutes above the steel, and they are, as they screw down the insulation, they have a guy on the ground spotting where the screws are, so they miss the wires and the flutes. They want to get a jump on this, do the demo of just the corridor this summer, get the abatement done so they can get the roofing done this summer before the start of school. And it's estimated, and this is abatement only, for $32,716, and this would go against the owner hazmat allowance.
Okay.
So let me understand this a little bit. This abatement is taking place so that they could do a portion of the roof, correct?
Correct.
Now, was abatement, and I should know this because I'm on that committee, but is there an abatement allowance on that contract to do that work?
There is an abatement allowance that there's contract abatement, and then there's anything additional from that abatement, contract abatement will be going towards this allowance that we have. We have money on each school for hazmat.
No, that's under this contract, but there's a separate contract for the roof, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we have a separate contract for the roof and the abatement is
But
under
the-
Oscars.
What is the roof under this contract?
No,
Um,
it is not.
No, it's
Mark,
under a
the
separate,
demo-
it's under
the-
a separate
the demo-
contract.
the-
So,
The demo will be done, is being done in the corridor under the HVAC project. Not the
I
roof
think,
project.
guys, can I clarify something quick? I think it's just getting a little lost. So, Rodney, to clarify the abatement, it's not directly related to the roof. So, as Mark did state, the existing conditions of North Stratfield have tons of wiring, fire alarm cable, and IT cable run up against in the flutes atop of the beams, which is not to code in today's standards. So, the building inspector, Pat Mahoney, came out to visit this with us and review the existing condition. His advice going through the school is to have, while we're doing the roof, is to have a spotter continue to check all the areas to make sure that no roof screws puncture any of these cables, wires, or fire alarm cable. So in doing that, we're doing the phase 2 roof and part of the phase 1 roof because it gives us the work to do all of the above roof work, which is duct work, gas piping, et cetera. If we don't do that work now, we are going to run into a schedule crunch potentially next summer. So we're doing that to be able to land units and stuff throughout the year per the schedule. So in order to have spotters, we talked to Sal and Mark and the team and say, hey, is it possible we can go and remove the phase 2 corridor ceiling ahead of time, which is slated to be done in the fall? And I said that will give us the real estate to do the correct spotting and check if there's any issues, with the existing wiring. So upon also doing that, I said in the phase 1 corridor, we had a lot of asbestos that had to be removed per the environment consultant. And I said, if we encounter that this fall while doing the demo, we're not going to have any adequate time to do abatement during the school year because of, school being in session. So we said it's probably best for the project and the schedule to try to do this corridor right now and open up that ceiling. We can spot the roof. We can also do the abatement and then have a clean bill of health in that corridor prior to school coming back end of August. So I know that's a lot of information to take in. So please, take a minute. And if you have any questions, but that's essentially how this all came to be.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve ATP number 14, additional ACM abatement in phase 2 corridors in the estimated amount of $32,716 for North Stratfield. Can I get a second?
second.
Okay, any further discussion? Ronnie, does that clarify it for you?
Yeah, and I apologize for the dog.
We didn't hear it.
No
actually.
worries. No worries. I just thought you got tired of me talking. You got up and left. So,
I just
it's like expired Rodney.
I was yelling at the dog, and I'm sure you didn't want to hear that.
Okay.
Better a dog than us.
Yeah.
All right. Hearing no further discussion. All in favor? Motion to approve?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, motion carries. Okay. Moving on. Invoices.
Invoices. Invoice packet for today. We have, ends up being 5 BL invoices, not the list that I have here. For June, Silver Petroselli invoice through June, and then 2 Van Zelm, who's the commissioning agent, one for their services basically in June and May. Total on it is $147,103.66.
Mark, I'm not sure I understand your comment about it's 5 BLs, not the package you're showing. What did that mean?
Well, their contract for phase 1 it encompasses the 3 schools,
Mm-hmm.
but I've broken out the 3 schools into 6 different line items. Because we are tracking the vestibule different than the HVAC project.
Good, okay.
That's why there's a long list of BL, but there's 10 line items for 5 invoices.
I see.
All right.
Okay.
I'll make a
The
motion.
phase
to
1 goes to
accept-
different bucket.
Understood. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept BL's company's invoices dated 6/28/2024 for the amount of $134,425.76.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll make a motion to accept Silver Petroselli's invoice 24-797 dated 7/1/2024 in the amount of $600.
I'll second the motion.
Hearing a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
In that same, I will make a motion to accept Van Zelm's 2 invoices. The first one's 52/053 dated 6/20/2024. Second one is 52/162 invoice number and dated 7/10/2024 for the total amount of $12,077.90.
I'll second the motion.
Hearing a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Rodney, I did all my math ahead of time in case you didn't do it. I was ready to do these lumpings for you. All right.
I had a few seconds this morning.
I'm just, I'll send out the Excel sheet for this, so all you gotta do is highlight them all.
All right. I don't believe so. Back onto the agenda. Moving on to old business. I have none. Anyone? Old business, Rodney, Joe, anything from you guys?
Maybe we should track the old business for that concrete.
Yeah,
Okay,
I made a note. I made a note of that for the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's all I have.
Okay. Moving on, new business. I have none. Joe, Rodney,
Done.
good. Hearing none, moving on. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.